Hello everyone, I am Maria Ekonomidou-Gogitsidis and I work at the University of Nicosia. I want to thank TESOL Academic for giving me this chance to talk to you today, and particularly Hugh Jarvis for kindly asking me to do a short talk on a paper that appeared in the ELT journal in October this year. The paper concerned the teaching of email politeness in the EFL/ESL classroom, and through the presentation and discussion of the results of an empirical study, it aimed to highlight the unwelcome potential effects of pragmatically unsuccessful EFL emails to faculty, and to also offer a number of practical suggestions and recommendations for pedagogical intervention. More specifically, the study investigated how a number of authentic emails, which were written by Cypriot University EFL students, were evaluated by British English native speaker lecturers. And just to explain the rationale of the study first, well, from observing the emails the Greek Cypriot students tend to send to their lecturers, one can see that they are typically characterized by a high degree of directness and lack of any internal mitigation. In fact, previous interlanguage research found that second language learners from a number of different cultural and linguistic backgrounds tend to employ higher requestive directness and less internal modification than English native speakers. Importantly, studies also have shown that even fairly advanced second language learners often lack adequate pragmatic awareness and competence in the second language, and they sometimes perform requests or other speech acts, such as apologies, refusals, compliments, and so on, either inappropriately or simply differently to the speakers of the target language. This study therefore aimed to investigate whether the direct and unmodified emails of the Cypriot University students can be pragmatically unsuccessful and can be viewed as impolite when used in the target language community. Now, a substantial number of Greek Cypriot students study in the UK or graduate from local universities and then transfer to the UK for postgraduate studies and for possible careers. Writing emails to an authority figure, therefore, such as a university lecturer or an employer, is an important skill, which is more challenging for second language speakers who not only struggle with grammatical accuracy, but they also often lack the sophisticated pragmatic competence in the second language and the knowledge of how second language culture shapes discourse and power relations. Now, when we're referring to pragmatic competence, we refer to someone's ability to carry out appropriate linguistic actions, someone's ability to use language appropriately in a given sociocultural context. Appropriate in the sense that it does not violate the social norms of the target language community. It is now therefore widely accepted that second language learners need not only to become able to accomplish goals as social actors, but to accomplish goals appropriately by taking into account the sociocultural context. When learners lack adequate pragmatic awareness and competence in the second language, and they find themselves in the target language community, the language can easily cause pragmatic failure and cross-cultural misunderstandings. Pragmatic failure occurs whenever two speakers fail to understand each other's intentions, and the force expressed is different to the one intended. This usually happens because certain social conventions or politeness rules have been violated. Unfortunately, pragmatic failures, unlike grammatical errors, are sometimes not recognized as such by non-linguists. And if a pragmatically competent non-native speaker appears to speak or write fluently, a speaker of the target language is likely to attribute the learner's pragmatic failure to impoliteness or unfriendliness rather than to any linguistic deficiency. So, while grammatical errors there reveal a speaker to be less than proficient language user, pragmatic failure reflects badly on the student as a person, running therefore the risk of appearing uncooperative, rude, or even insulting. Now, as the implications of pragmatic failure can be serious for learners, a number of researchers have emphasized the need for explicit pragmatic instruction in the language classroom, and they have shown that there are a number of merits in relation to the explicit pragmatic instruction. The goal of the pedagogical intervention is, above all, to develop learners' pragmatic awareness and competence by primarily drawing their conscious attention to the pragmatic norms of the target language. Its goal is to sensitize students to the possible cross-cultural pragmatic differences, because the cause of pragmatic failure is quite often the result of pragmatic transfer from their first language and culture. Referring now specifically to email communication, a number of studies examined how English non-native speaker students use email to communicate with their lecturers in an institutional setting. Results found that learners' emails were pragmatically unsuccessful due to inappropriate and insufficient mitigation, due to an emphasis on students' personal needs, wants, and unreasonable timeframes, lack of acknowledgement of the imposition involved, and in general, lack of status-concurrent language. Results also confirmed that learners' emails were characterized by higher directness, by an absence of greetings and closings, and by inappropriate or unacceptable forms of address. Now, just to give you some brief background on how the research data and in relation to the research data and participants of the study. The data came from authentic emails which were sent in English by Greek Cypriot University students. These emails addressed the students' lecturers in an English medium university in Cyprus. This English was used as a lingua franca. The students were all undergraduate students whose English language proficiency was advanced. The emails involved included one or more requests on various academic matters, and these emails were selected on the basis of their high degree of directness and lack of mitigation. Those emails represented first-time interactions on the topic and were not part of an email discourse chain. Now, 24 university lecturers, British English native speakers, from 12 universities in the UK were then asked to assess the emails through the use of a perception questionnaire. They were asked to offer their perceptions on the politeness of the email messages on a 5-point Likert scale. And they were also asked to provide comments for their assessment by making specific reference to those linguistic features of the message that actually thought that they might cause the problem. So therefore, they were asked to make reference to these linguistic features from the message that they were problematic by explaining how they could characterize the message or the student. The analysis now indicated that there was a significant difference in the perceived degree of politeness of the 6 emails which were included in the questionnaire. Email 2, which can be seen here, was perceived as significantly less polite than the rest of the emails, and it was this email that received the most negative evaluation. You can see here that this email comes with an attachment of the student's written work and with a single line which states, "Please note what changes should be made." Email 6 and 1, on the other hand, were significantly more successful in not violating social appropriateness. A closer look at the emails allows us to see that although all 3 emails employed the please plus imperative structure, email 2 has no salutation, 0 form of address, it has no opening, no greeting, it has no syntactic mitigation, no external mitigation, such as, for instance, reasons or explanations. It has no closing and no acknowledgement of the imposition cost. The student is asking the lecturer to review his written work, a rather large imposition, by sending a bare imperative request with an attached file of the work that needs to be reviewed. Unlike email 2, though, email 1 does offer a reason, an explanation, and acknowledges the imposition involved by thanking the lecturer. It also employs the informal dear plus first name address form, which in the context of British higher education, it has been seen as an acceptable greeting. Similarly, those emails that were found to be more polite than the rest in the study also included a thank you closing, which is something that can be seen as some form of acknowledgement of the faculty's time. One important thing that we can also therefore notice concerns this please plus imperative structure. In fact, this please plus imperative structure was viewed particularly negatively by the English lecturers. A number of participants explained that such directness sounds like a demand or an instruction, and indeed the comments can confirm that such significantly direct strategies can easily become responsible for pragmatic infelicities because they appear to give the faculty member no choice in complying with the request. As a participant of the study explained, the imperative, she said, is what I would expect from a supervisor or a manager, not a student. And thus, such an imperative creates the assumption that the lecturer will comply. Emails now 3 and 5, which can be seen here, did not make use of the please plus imperative structure, yet they still employ direct strategies that caused them to be seen as rather abrupt. Therefore, they also received rather negative evaluations. More specifically, email 3 employed a want statement, I would like to know about assignment number 2, and email 5 employed a direct question for information. Both of these requests were externally unmodified and included no lexical or phrasal mitigators. In relation to email 3, most participants criticized the lack of an explanation and also this lack of an apology. Some lecturers characterized the sender as imposing and authoritative, bad-mannered, abrupt, and self-centered. So it therefore becomes clear that the use of a want statement without the necessary mitigation can also render the email inappropriate because it emphasizes the sender's own personal wants and needs. A further element which was negatively evaluated in the emails was the omission of the address form dear in the salutation of some of the emails. One participant explained that missing out dear seems like a mistake, while another participant admitted that she's actually uncomfortable about the use of the lecturer's name without dear. And she said that she would prefer hi or hello because, as it stands, the specific email seems far too formal and therefore rather inappropriate. What also received particularly negative evaluations was the absence of a salutation altogether, as we can see here in emails 2 and 3. Even though email 3 begins with hello, this was still seen as an inappropriate way of opening such an email. One of the lecturers explained how he found the lack of salutation in email 3 disrespectful, while another participant explained in relation to email 2 that this email is not addressed to him and therefore is seen as abrupt and to a good degree impolite. So we can see that not using the lecturer's the lecturer's name can also cause offense. Now, the informal form of address dear plus first name, as in, for example, in email number 1, was not found to be inappropriate by participants because most of them agreed that UK culture is quite informal in these regards. Similarly, the grammatically incorrect title plus first name, as in Dr. Paul, was seen as amusing rather than rude or insulting, which indicates that such violations are minor and do not appear to cause pragmatic failure. However, what can easily become the source of pragmatic misunderstandings in such parasymmetrical emails is the employment of intensifiers, such as soon as possible. Now, such intensifiers can render the request coercive and abrupt, And even though these intensifiers are often used to stress the urgency involved, the lecturers in the study mentioned how these intensifiers gave a rude effect to the message, how they demanded, the messages came across as demanding information, putting pressure on the lecturer, and how the student failed to take the lecturer's time into consideration. So overall, this study provided some evidence that EFL learners' pragmatic choices can sometimes cause pragmatic failure in native speaker, non-native speaker interaction. Even though learners' pragmatic choices might be acceptable in English as a lingua franca email communication, the same choices can cause pragmatic failure when used in the target language community. So, what becomes evident from this study is that learners are in need of explicit pragmatic instruction when it comes to writing emails, especially to authority figures. This is more the case for those learners who are planning on moving to the target language culture for educational, professional, or personal reasons. These learners need, as a first step, to have their pragmatic awareness raised through conscious raising activities, which can help them become aware of the different politeness norms that might exist in the target language environment. As part of such pragmatic awareness activities, learners can be presented with pragmatically appropriate and inappropriate emails to work on. These emails could be written by native speakers and non-native speakers, and then the learners can be asked to compare, evaluate, and discuss. Learners' attention, though, must be specifically drawn to these distinctive elements that are different from those in their mother tongue. The learners can be asked to consider or discuss the context, directness choices, address forms, modification choices, also according to specific sociological and contextual factors. For example, in relation to participants' relationships, degree of imposition involved, degree of formality, possible urgency, power differences, rights and obligations. Learners could then be involved in carrying out revisions on these emails. They could also benefit from discussing the different politeness norms that exist in their culture as compared to the target culture in relation to writing emails to an authority figure. Now, if learners have access, personal or electronic, to native speakers, they can also be asked to collect their own native speakers' evaluations and comments, which can then provide the basis for classroom discussion. Learners can share their findings in class, and through discussion, they can identify those email features that can unintentionally cause a problem. Learners can also be involved in writing new emails altogether, either to each other or to their native speaker instructors, whom they can ask for feedback on the email style and overall tone. Writing and revising emails will help them develop not only their pragmatic awareness, but their pragmatic competence as well. Now, importantly, however, in a world where English is increasingly used as a lingua franca, it is essential that teachers are careful to avoid prescriptivism and try to enforce Anglo-Saxon standards of behavior. As Julian House explains, if one wants to develop interactional competence in ELF, it is inappropriate to teach a particular cultural, literary profile, British, American, Canadian, etc. So to conclude, the responsibility, therefore, of the language teacher is not to enforce the norms of a particular culture if the culture targeted is not clear, but to equip the students with the ability to express themselves in exactly the way they choose to do so, tactfully, directly, indirectly, rudely, or in an elaborate, polite manner. What we want to prevent is our learners being unintentionally rude or subservient. Thank you very much for watching.